You know when you look at a really complex global conflict and you just feel totally lost? Well, what if I told you the key to understanding the whole thing might actually be hidden inside something as simple as a puzzle? Today, we're going to put the pieces together on a blueprint that explains how negotiations start, why they fall apart, and how they just might be saved.
So at first glance, yeah, this looks like any old crossword puzzle, right? But the words hiding in there, they are not random at all. They actually tell a story, a very specific and predictable one. They map out the entire life cycle of a conflict, from these hopeful beginnings to a dangerous deadlock, and maybe, just maybe, a way back to peace.
All right, so let's start at the very beginning of our story. This is where every single negotiation kicks off, with an attempt to create some order, to find some common ground, and to build something new together.
And look where our puzzle starts us off, right here, with the word framework. This is absolutely the essential first step. It honestly doesn't matter if we're talking about a small town dispute or a massive global treaty. Everything, and I mean everything, starts with a plan.
A framework isn't just some vague idea or a buzzword. It is the actual foundation. You can think of it like the rule book, the shared principles that everybody agrees to build upon. And without that solid base, well, any attempt at making progress is pretty much doomed from the start.
And here we go. This is our first major turning point. The plan is out there, the foundation has been laid, and then boom, it's rejected. This is that critical moment where our story takes a sharp and frankly dangerous turn, away from cooperation and towards something a whole lot darker. See, when a framework gets rejected, it's a formal declaration. The path forward is officially closed. This isn't just some minor bump in the road. No, it's a fundamental breakdown of the process. And it immediately sets the stage for what's coming next: conflict.
So once that door to agreement gets slammed shut, things almost never just stay calm. That failure to agree, it creates this vacuum, and that vacuum is almost always filled with rising tension and, eventually, open hostility.
This really lays out the chain reaction perfectly. Just look at this sequence here. That initial rejection leads to escalating tensions. And that escalation, it leads to a complete and total deadlock, a stalemate. And that stalemate, in turn, creates widespread negative fallout. You see? Each step leads directly to the next. It's a downward spiral.
So first up is escalation. This is where things start to get worse, and they get worse fast. The language gets harsher, the actions become more aggressive, and the whole situation just feels more and more volatile and unpredictable.
And all of that escalating pressure, it eventually leads to a stalemate. All that energy, all that intensity, it results in absolutely nothing. No movement. Both sides just dig in their heels and get so entrenched that any kind of forward progress becomes impossible.
And let me tell you, this is one of the most frustrating and dangerous moments in any conflict. It's kind of like a tug-of-war, where neither side can pull the other even an inch. Nobody's winning, but nobody's willing to back down either. And that tension just hangs heavy in the air. And while the main players are locked in this stalemate, the consequences, the fallout, that's when it really starts to spread. This stuff doesn't stay contained. It hits economies, it damages societies, and it impacts innocent people who might be miles away from the actual conflict. It's the real collateral damage of doing nothing.
Okay, so we're stuck. We're in a stalemate, negative fallout is spreading everywhere. So how do the opposing sides even manage a situation this tense? Well, they usually turn to one of two very, very different strategies.
So the first strategy is deterrence. The thinking here is basically, all right, if we can't move forward, I'm going to make absolutely sure you can't either, by showing you just how high the cost will be if you even think about making a move against me.
And that's the key thing to get about deterrence. It's not about peace. It is about control, and it's achieved through fear. It's a strategy that keeps the stalemate going by creating a threat so big that the other side is just paralyzed. It's stability, but it's built on a knife's edge.
But, there is another way. Instead of constant threats, there's the truce. Instead of cranking up the pressure, a truce is about temporarily letting it go. It's an agreement to just stop the fighting, even if the really big problems haven't been solved yet.
I mean, you can see the difference so clearly right here. Deterrence stops action with the threat of violence. A truce pauses action through mutual agreement. One is the language of power and fear, the other is the very first whisper of dialogue and maybe, just maybe, de-escalation.
A truce can offer up a moment of quiet, a break in the storm. And in that quiet moment, it becomes possible to see the first signs of a path out of the darkness and back towards some kind of resolution.
And that brings us to this really crucial word, revive. I mean, after everything has been rejected and escalated and has totally fallen apart, how in the world do you even begin to pick up the pieces and start all over again?
To revive a peace process is literally to breathe life back into something that everybody thought was dead and gone. It means finding the will and the way to get back to the negotiating table, to bring a collapsed framework back to life.
But here's the thing. Reviving a failed process, it doesn't just happen on its own. It requires one final, crucial, and often really elusive ingredient, and that is optimism. Because without it, why would anyone ever dare to try again?
And that's what real optimism is, right? It's not some naive hope. It's a confident belief that even after all the failure, after all the fallout, a better outcome is still possible. It's the fuel that allows leaders and their people to take that huge risk of trusting each other one more time.
So in the end, this simple little puzzle has given us this incredibly powerful story. We've gone from the structured planning of a framework through its rejection, the dangerous fallout that follows, and all the way to the essential optimism you need to revive the whole process. This is the vocabulary of conflict and peace.
And that leaves us with one last thought. This pattern, this exact blueprint, it repeats itself over and over again in conflicts all around the world. So the real question for you is, now that you know the language, now that you can see the blueprint, where are you seeing this story play out in the world right now?